The stage was set. Dr. Phil sat behind his desk, the audience buzzing with anticipation. Today's guest, a woman in her late 50s, walked slowly to the center of the stage, her hands slightly trembling. There was an air of tension, something heavy hovered in the room, something unsaid that had kept her awake for decades. "Thank you for joining us today," Dr. Phil began, his voice calm but curious. "I hear you've carried a secret for 40 years?" The woman nodded, a faint, almost imperceptible shiver running through her. "Yes, it's something I've never shared with anyone," she whispered, her eyes darting toward the audience as if seeking approval, or perhaps, forgiveness. The audience leaned forward, intrigued. Everyone knew Dr. Phil was no stranger to shocking stories, but the weight in her gaze suggested this was different. Something personal. Something monumental. Dr. Phil's expression shifted subtly, an eyebrow raised, a slight lean forward. 40 years is a long time to carry a secret. Are you ready to tell us what it is today? The woman swallowed hard. She nodded again, her hands gripping the chair, knuckles white. The audience murmured quietly, you could feel the collective heartbeat of the room, waiting for what would come next. "What I'm about to tell you, it's not easy," she began, her voice shaky. "But I finally feel like I have to. I can't carry this alone anymore." Dr. Phil remained silent, leaning in, his eyes fixed on her. You could almost feel the tension in the air, every person in the room holding their breath, waiting for the revelation that had been hidden for 4 decades. The camera slowly panned over the audience, wide-eyed, some whispering to neighbors, some frowning, trying to anticipate the nature of the secret. It was clear that this story was about more than drama. It was about truth, courage, and the weight of years spent in silence. "And now," Dr. Phil said, his voice steady but tinged with disbelief, "I think it's time. The world deserves to know the truth you've kept all these years." The woman took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with the first tears of relief. "What I'm about to reveal," she paused, glancing nervously at Dr. Phil, "will shock everyone in this room." The audience gasped. Even Dr. Phil looked stunned. "Have you ever kept a secret for decades?" Comment yes or no below. The room was silent except for the soft hum of the studio lights. Dr. Phil leaned forward slightly, his expression a mix of curiosity and concern. The woman took a shaky breath, gathering the courage she had been holding onto for 40 years. "It all started when I was very young," she began, her voice trembling but gaining strength with each word. "I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other, and no one ever talked about certain things. I experienced something back then that changed my life, and I promised myself I would never speak of it." The audience was rapt, hanging on her every word. You could see the tension building in Dr. Phil's eyes. He could tell immediately that this wasn't just an ordinary story of regret or family drama. This was something much deeper. "I carried this secret for decades," she continued. "I thought keeping it hidden would protect me, protect my family, but it only weighed me down. Every day, I lived with the fear that someone might find out. Every day, I wondered if I'd ever be able to breathe freely again." Dr. Phil nodded slowly, his voice calm but probing. "And what made today the day you finally decided to share it?" She hesitated for a moment, glancing at the cameras and the audience. "I realized that carrying it alone wasn't helping anyone, not me, not my loved ones. I needed to confront it, and I needed to tell someone I could trust. That's why I'm here with you." The audience murmured quietly, some nodded in sympathy, others exchanged wide-eyed looks, sensing the gravity of the confession. The tension in the room was palpable. Dr. Phil leaned in further, his voice gentle but firm. "Can you tell us exactly what happened, step by step? We need to understand your story fully." The woman took a deep breath. I was part of a family that everyone respected in our community. Outwardly, everything seemed perfect. But behind closed doors, there were events, circumstances, things I endured that no child should ever face. At the time, I didn't have anyone to confide in, and as I grew older, I realized speaking about it could ruin reputations, 'cause shame, so I stayed silent." She paused, her eyes glistening. "I know some people may judge me for staying quiet for so long. I know that. But I want people to understand the complexity, the fear, the shame, the survival instinct that kept me silent all these years. Dr. Phil nodded, giving her the space to continue. And now you've chosen truth, he said softly. That's incredibly brave. The woman's eyes scanned the audience, her voice growing firmer. For 40 years, I've wondered, would anyone believe me? Would I be ridiculed? But I've realized that the truth is more powerful than fear. And today, I'm ready. The audience was completely absorbed. Some were holding back tears, others sat frozen, leaning forward. The cameras captured every angle, the subtle quiver of her hands, the tense posture of Dr. Phil, the silent anticipation of the crowd. Dr. Phil's next words were calm but direct. This is a story about courage. But we want our viewers to feel connected too. Where are you watching from? Which city? Which country? Share it in the comments below and let us know if you've ever faced a secret that changed your life. The woman swallowed hard and nodded. I remember thinking, as a child, that I was alone. But today, I see that sharing my story connects me to all of you. That even after decades, there's hope in honesty. Her voice wavered slightly as she added, I don't want pity. I don't want fame. I just want to set the record straight. I want people to understand what it feels like to carry a burden silently for so long. Dr. Phil's expression softened, his hands clasped together on the desk. The fact that you're willing to speak about this now, after 40 years, is powerful. And I know many people watching will relate, even if their experiences are different. The audience murmured in agreement, some nodding, some whispering to neighbors. There was a shared understanding in the room, a recognition of the universal struggle of silence, fear, and the eventual courage to speak. And that's why this story matters, Dr. Phil said, turning slightly toward the camera. It's not just about one person's secret. It's about all of us who've carried something in silence, wondering if we'll ever be heard. The woman finally exhaled, a small but visible relief washing over her. For the first time in decades, she felt a sense of liberation. The audience, sensing the gravity of her revelation, sat quietly, allowing her space. She looked directly at Dr. Phil and whispered, I've carried this for 40 years, and now I can finally breathe. The camera zoomed in on Dr. Phil's face, shock mixed with empathy. The audience leaned forward, hanging on what would come next. Have you ever carried a secret that changed your life? Comment below and tell us your city or country, we want to hear your story. The studio was silent, save for the soft hum of anticipation. Dr. Phil leaned forward slightly, his eyes fixed on the woman who had just begun peeling back the layers of a secret she had carried for 40 years. The audience, now fully invested, sat on the edge of their seats, their curiosity mixed with empathy. I need to tell you something that has haunted me for decades, the woman said, her voice trembling but gaining resolve. It's something I never imagined I'd speak aloud. I feared judgment, disbelief, even rejection. Dr. Phil nodded slowly. I understand. And that's why we're here, to give you a safe space to share it. Please, take your time. She took a deep breath, glancing at the audience and then back at Dr. Phil. It all started when I was very young. There were events in my life that I didn't understand at the time, moments that left me confused, scared, and alone. I told myself I had to stay quiet, that revealing the truth would only bring more pain. The audience leaned in, the tension palpable. Some whispered to each other, trying to piece together what could have possibly stayed hidden for 4 decades. Others sat frozen, captivated by her vulnerability and the gravity of the moment. I remember feeling trapped, she continued, her hands gripping the edge of the chair. Every day, I carried this burden. I wanted to speak out, but I didn't have the courage, or the voice, to do it. The fear of being misunderstood or laughed at was overwhelming. Dr. Phil's expression was a careful mix of concern and encouragement. Many people live with secrets like this, but few have the courage to share them. You've already taken the first step by being here. That alone is powerful. The woman nodded, swallowing hard. I kept asking myself, how can I live the rest of my life in silence? And finally, I realized that this secret was bigger than me. It affected my family, my relationships, my peace of mind, it affected everything. As she spoke, the audience was completely absorbed. Some wiped tears from their eyes, others whispered to neighbors in astonishment. Every person in the room felt the weight of her words, the kind of silence that only comes when a story is so raw it demands attention. Dr. Phil leaned in, his voice steady but probing. What happened next? How did it shape the person you've become? The woman's eyes glistened as she looked directly at him. I learned resilience. I learned to survive, to protect myself emotionally, and to find strength in silence. But over the years, that silence became a prison. And now, I've chosen freedom over fear. She paused for a moment, letting the words sink in. The studio's quiet was almost deafening, as if everyone collectively held their breath. Dr. Phil then turned slightly toward the camera, addressing the viewers. This story isn't just about one person. It's about all of us who've ever felt trapped by our past, by things we thought we could never say aloud. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where speaking the truth felt impossible? He smiled gently. Comment below where you're watching from, your city or country, and share your thoughts. Your story matters. The woman exhaled slowly, a small sense of relief evident on her face. I've spent 40 years imagining this moment. And even though it's terrifying, I feel lighter already. I feel like I can finally breathe. Dr. Phil nodded, his voice soft but firm. You're showing incredible courage. And what happens next, I think, will resonate with everyone watching. Sometimes, revealing a secret is not about the past, it's about claiming your future. The audience murmured in agreement, their emotions mirrored on every face. Some were moved to tears, others nodded silently, acknowledging the universal power of honesty and vulnerability. The woman's gaze swept across the room, lingering on Dr. Phil before turning back to the cameras. I know not everyone will understand why I stayed silent. But I hope that sharing my story today will help someone else find the courage they need, to speak, to heal, to move forward. She paused, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. The room remained quiet, the tension thick but charged with anticipation. Everyone was waiting, knowing that the moment of revelation, the long-awaited uncovering of the 40-year secret, was drawing near. What would you do if you were in her shoes? Comment below and let us know. The studio fell into a hushed silence as the woman's words trailed off. Dr. Phil leaned forward, his eyes locked on her, sensing that the moment everyone had been waiting for was finally approaching. The audience seemed to hold their collective breath, leaning forward in anticipation. Every whisper, every small movement, was magnified by the tension in the room. I've carried this secret for 40 years, the woman began again, her voice steadying as though she had found the courage she needed. And for most of those years, I told myself that I had to protect someone, protect everyone, by keeping silent. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, his calm presence providing her the space to continue. It's clear that you've carried an incredible burden, he said. And now, you're finally ready to share the truth. Please, tell us what happened. Her hands tightened around the chair, knuckles white. When I was a teenager, I witnessed something that no child should ever see, something that changed my family, my life, and the person I would become. I couldn't speak about it then. I feared the consequences, the judgment, the chaos it might cause. The audience was completely captivated. You could hear the faintest gasp ripple through the crowd as they began to realize the magnitude of her words. Some leaned closer to their neighbors, whispering questions to one another, trying to anticipate the nature of the secret. Dr. Phil's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion but in deep focus. And you've waited decades to tell this story. That shows incredible strength, but I imagine it's been heavy on your heart all this time. She nodded, swallowing hard. Every single day. I carried it silently, replaying it over and over in my mind. Wondering if I'd ever be able to live freely, wondering if anyone would ever understand. For a moment, there was only the quiet hum of the studio. The audience's faces were a mix of awe, empathy, and suspense. Everyone knew that what would come next could change everything, not just for her, but for everyone listening. I kept hoping that time would erase the pain, she continued, her voice gaining intensity, but the truth doesn't fade. It waits, quietly, demanding to be heard. And today, I can't hold it in any longer. Dr. Phil's hand rested on the desk, his voice calm but commanding. This is your moment. Speak your truth. She took a deep, shuddering breath. The secret I've been hiding, it involves someone I loved, someone I trusted completely, and it changed the course of my life forever. The audience gasped audibly. Whispers spread. What could it be? Some leaned forward, others clutched their hands to their mouths. The suspense in the studio was electric. Dr. Phil's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of anticipation and empathy. I know it's not easy to share something so personal. But the courage it takes to speak out is monumental. And I know people watching at home are with you every step of the way. She nodded, tears brimming. I want everyone to understand that keeping this secret wasn't about shame or guilt, it was about survival. For years, I thought I was protecting those I loved, but in reality, I was only protecting myself from pain I didn't know how to face. The audience remained silent, fully engrossed. Some wiped tears from their eyes, while others exchanged shocked glances. The tension built with every word, every pause, every small breath she took. And now, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I'm ready for the world to know the truth. The truth I've carried for 40 years, is finally going to be revealed. Dr. Phil leaned in closer, his tone gentle yet commanding. And when you do, the audience, and the world, will understand the depth of your courage. This is more than a secret. It's a testament to your resilience, your strength, and your bravery. The woman's eyes swept across the room one last time before she spoke. I hope that by telling this story, someone out there, who has been living in silence, in fear, will find the courage to speak. To finally release the weight they've been carrying. The studio remained quiet, the suspense almost unbearable. Everyone knew the reveal was imminent. Cameras zoomed in on Dr. Phil's attentive expression, capturing every subtle shift of emotion, every flicker of anticipation in the audience. Could you have kept a secret for 40 years? Comment yes or no, and share your thoughts below. The woman paused, drawing a deep, steadying breath. The tension in the room was thick, the moment stretching as everyone waited for her next words, the words that would finally expose the truth and leave a mark on everyone watching. The studio was electric with anticipation. Every eye in the audience was fixed on the woman, her hands still gripping the chair as if anchoring herself for the moment that would change everything. Dr. Phil leaned forward slightly, his calm demeanor belying the tension building in the room. He knew this moment, the reveal, was the turning point. I've carried this secret for 40 years, she began again, her voice quivering yet determined. And today, I'm finally going to tell the truth. It's time everyone understands what really happened. The audience shifted in their seats. Some held their hands over their mouths, others exchanged wide-eyed glances. A hush fell over the room, broken only by the soft hum of the cameras capturing every expression. Dr. Phil nodded slowly, encouraging yet firm. Go ahead. This is your space. Speak freely. The woman drew a deep breath. When I was a teenager, something happened in my family, a betrayal, a series of choices that no child should have witnessed or been burdened with. It changed how I saw the world, how I trusted people, and how I carried myself for decades afterward. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. For years, I told myself that silence was protection. That by keeping this secret, I was sparing people pain. But the truth doesn't disappear. It waits, quietly, demanding to be faced. Dr. Phil's eyes softened. You're showing incredible courage. And it's a reminder to everyone watching, the truth is powerful, even if it's difficult. The woman nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. The secret I've kept, it involves someone very close to me, someone I loved and trusted completely. Their actions, decisions they made, impacted my entire life. And for decades, I carried the burden, thinking I had to stay silent to survive. The audience gasped audibly. Whispers spread through the crowd. What could it be? I can't believe this. Every head turned, every ear perked, every eye fixed on her. I'm finally sharing this today because I realized that carrying this secret alone has only held me back, she said, her voice gaining strength. It's not about revenge or shame, it's about truth, justice, and finally being free of the weight I've carried for 40 years. Dr. Phil leaned in, voice steady but emphatic. And that's the most important part, sharing the truth sets you free, and it gives others hope to confront their own burdens. What happened to you, while deeply personal, also teaches us all about courage, resilience, and integrity. The woman exhaled, a visible sense of relief washing over her. I want everyone watching to understand that silence is not strength. True strength comes from facing your fears, sharing your truth, and finding peace. The audience erupted in applause. Some stood, clapping with emotion, others wiped tears from their eyes. Cameras panned across the crowd, capturing the collective relief, empathy, and admiration. Dr. Phil's voice rose slightly over the applause. This story isn't just about one person. It's about all of us who've ever carried a secret too heavy to bear. And it's about the courage it takes to finally share it. The woman looked directly into the camera. I hope that by sharing this today, someone out there will find the courage to speak. You don't have to live in fear or isolation. There's freedom in honesty, and strength in vulnerability. Audience members could be seen nodding, some whispering quietly to neighbors about their own experiences. The energy in the room was palpable, a mix of awe, respect, and shared humanity. Dr. Phil leaned back, his eyes still fixed on her. Your story is a reminder that no matter how long a secret has been kept, it's never too late to speak the truth. And I think viewers everywhere will be inspired by your courage. She smiled faintly, tears streaming down her cheeks. For 40 years, I thought I had to stay silent. But today I've reclaimed my voice. And I hope it inspires others to do the same. Tag someone who needs to hear this story today. Have you ever carried a secret for years? Share your experience in the comments below. The cameras lingered on her face, capturing the mix of relief, pride, and emotional release. Dr. Phil nodded to the audience, who continued clapping, some standing in ovation. The moment was historic, not just for the woman, but for everyone watching, proof that courage and honesty can transform lives. No matter how long the truth has been hidden, the applause had died down, but the energy in the studio was far from gone. The audience was still buzzing from the emotional reveal, the weight of 4 decades of silence finally lifted. Dr. Phil leaned forward, his eyes warm and attentive, signaling that the next part of the story was just as important as the reveal itself, the reflection, the lessons, the impact. You've just shared something incredibly powerful, Dr. Phil said softly. And I think viewers at home are feeling the weight of it, too. But beyond the story itself, what have you learned from carrying this secret, and now finally sharing it? The woman took a deep breath, her voice steadier than before. I've learned that silence can feel like protection, but it's really a cage. I spent decades thinking I was shielding myself and others, but in reality, I was holding myself back from living fully. The moment I spoke the truth, I realized that honesty, no matter how difficult, is freeing. The audience nodded along, some whispering quietly, others reflecting silently. The emotional weight of her words seemed to resonate with everyone present. Dr. Phil's tone was gentle, guiding the conversation further. And what would you say to someone out there who is living with a secret, someone who might be scared to speak out? Her eyes scanned the room, then rested on the camera, reaching out to viewers across the globe. I would tell them, you are stronger than you realize. Keeping a secret may feel like control, but it's really fear talking. Sharing your truth doesn't make you weak, it makes you human, and it can heal not just yourself, but others who may be suffering in silence as well. The audience murmured in agreement. Some wiped tears from their eyes, others nodded as if they were acknowledging their own experiences. The atmosphere was heavy, but it carried hope. Dr. Phil leaned back slightly, his voice steady but resonant. This story reminds us all that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about moving forward despite fear. And the lessons from your story are universal, about resilience, integrity, and the power of honesty. The woman's voice grew more confident as she continued. For decades, I felt trapped in my own life, wondering if anyone would ever understand. But now, sharing my story, I've realized that every secret, every burden, every hidden fear is an opportunity to connect with others. We're all human, and we all carry things we don't always know how to express. But when we do, it changes everything. Dr. Phil nodded, his eyes reflecting both empathy and admiration. And that's why it's so important to speak up. The courage it takes to be vulnerable can inspire others to face their own struggles. At this point, Dr. Phil turned slightly toward the audience, addressing them directly. I want everyone here, and everyone watching at home, to think about what they've learned from this story. Have you ever witnessed someone standing up to a lifetime of fear? How did it affect you? Comment below and share your story. The woman added softly, almost as if speaking directly to each person watching, if you've been hiding something for years, know that it's never too late to speak. Sharing the truth isn't just about you, it's about the ripple effect it can have on those around you. Courage is contagious, and honesty can heal more than just your heart. The cameras panned across the audience, capturing expressions of reflection, admiration, and newfound determination. Some audience members whispered to their neighbors, exchanging thoughts about personal secrets and burdens they had carried. Others simply nodded silently, visibly moved by the universality of the woman's experience. Dr. Phil leaned in one final time, his voice calm but compelling. And that's the lesson we take from today's story: the past doesn't define us, our courage does. Your truth matters. Your story matters. And sharing it can light a path for others who are still searching for the strength to speak. The woman smiled faintly, tears glistening in her eyes. For 40 years, I thought silence was safety. But now, I know that truth, spoken bravely and with intention, is what sets you free. And if my story can help even one person find their voice, then everything I went through was worth it. Have you ever witnessed someone standing up to injustice or fear? Share your story below and let us know what lesson you learned. The audience responded with applause, some standing, some quietly reflecting, but all clearly impacted. Cameras lingered on their faces, showing a mix of relief, empathy, and inspiration. The room was alive with emotion, yet calm, a moment of shared humanity that transcended the stage. Dr. Phil concluded, his voice steady and heartfelt, "Your story reminds us that life isn't about hiding, it's about confronting and sharing. And today, you've shown the world that courage, honesty, and vulnerability can change lives, not just yours, but everyone who witnesses it." The woman exhaled slowly, a soft smile on her face. For the first time in 40 years, she truly felt the weight lifted. And the audience, along with millions watching at home, felt the power of a story told with unwavering courage. The studio lights dimmed slightly as the woman's story settled into the hearts of everyone present. Dr. Phil sat back in his chair, his calm, thoughtful demeanor reflecting the gravity of what had just unfolded. The audience remained silent for a moment, absorbing the emotional weight of a 40-year secret finally revealed. Then, slowly, applause erupted, a mixture of admiration, relief, and shared humanity. "This is a moment that will resonate far beyond these walls," Dr. Phil said, his voice steady but impassioned. "What you've just shared is more than a story, it's a lesson in courage, honesty, and the power of speaking your truth." The woman smiled softly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "For decades, I thought I had to carry this alone. But today, sharing it, I feel lighter, stronger, and hopeful. I hope my story inspires others who may still be living in silence." The audience responded with a standing ovation. Cameras captured their expressions, some cheering, some wiping tears, all visibly moved. The energy in the studio was electric, a palpable mixture of respect and inspiration. As the show aired, clips of the reveal quickly spread online. Within hours, millions across the globe were watching, sharing, and commenting. Social media platforms were flooded with messages of support, empathy, and awe. Viewers praised the woman for her bravery, applauding Dr. Phil for providing a platform for truth and courage. Hashtags like #CourageToSpeak, #TruthMatters, and #40-Year Secret began trending worldwide. News outlets picked up the story, highlighting the emotional journey and the lessons it carried. Discussions about the power of honesty, the consequences of silence, and the importance of confronting personal fears dominated online forums. The woman's story had transcended the studio, it had become a movement. Dr. Phil addressed the camera one last time, his voice steady, commanding attention. What you've witnessed today is proof that it's never too late to share your truth. Your voice matters, your story matters, and your courage can inspire others. If you've ever carried a secret, let this story be your reminder that speaking out can change lives, yours and those around you. The woman added softly, yet with conviction, I don't want fame or sympathy. I want people to understand that even after decades of fear, it's possible to reclaim your voice. And if my journey encourages someone else to speak, then it's all been worth it. If you believe in the power of truth and courage, type courage in the comments below. Share your story, your experience, and let the world know that speaking out matters. The cameras panned across the audience one final time, faces shining with emotion, nodding in agreement, some wiping away tears, all reflecting on the universality of the message. The woman's expression was a mixture of relief, pride, and quiet triumph. For the first time in 40 years, the weight she had carried had lifted entirely. Dr. Phil concluded, his voice gentle but firm, remember, silence may feel safe, but courage changes everything. One story can inspire millions. One voice can ignite hope. Don't underestimate the power of sharing your truth. As the show ended, the audience rose to give a final, heartfelt ovation. Cameras captured the moment, the woman smiling, Dr. Phil nodding, and viewers at home feeling the ripple effect of a story told with unwavering bravery. The secret that had been hidden for 4 decades was no longer a burden, it had become a beacon of hope, strength, and inspiration for the world.